Hi, ladies. Welcome back to the Lady Landlords podcast. Today, we have Jennifer from Prospecting Works on to discuss cold calling and some tips there. So, Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So, if you could just briefly just share a little bit about who you are as a person with our listeners today.
Oh, wow. So I'm actually really an artist. And I have been weaving out of corporate America my whole life. I was a painter. I did a variety of things. And what ended up happening was I became the director of business development for a marketing consulting firm. And that's when I learned how to cold call. But it was in 2012 when I left that job. I really wanted to be a full-time artist. So I built a wood turning business. I have a line of kitchenware that I sell all over the world, and I funded it by setting appointments for other senior salespeople, just like I was. And I can trace back everything good in my life, my home, I had motorcycles, I had a classic car, like everything in my life can go back to my ability to cold call. And so it's really allowed me to fulfill my dreams. If somebody wants to write a book, or build a wood turning business, whatever, if you know how to set appointments, you will always be employed. And so I am a passionate advocate for it because it really can let you live or allow you to live a bigger life.
So I love that you have, like many of our listeners, they have kind of these full-time things that they're working on, but then they have their passion within real estate investing. So I think it's so cool that you also kind of fit that model of still having your own business within teaching others how to cold call and be successful within that. But that actually really funds your passion, which is the arts and woodworking.
Right.
So I really love how that kind of fits together.
Yeah. Appointment setting, learning how to set appointments is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself because you're guaranteed employment for life. So if you want to leave your job and try something, that's a risk for a lot of people. But if you know how to cold call, you can certainly sit at home and set appointments for people 20 hours a week, and you're not going to make a ton of money, but you're going to cover your bills. So it really gives people time. And I'm somebody that I have 4 things going at any one time. And I just really love the flexibility. And what's also really interesting is that women make phenomenal cold callers, and many women don't realize that we have our tone of voice. We can be professional and confident, friendly, and a little bit enthusiastic, where men struggle with that. So we really make great appointment setters and cold callers. And I wish more women knew that, because then they would evolve into more senior roles in sales, or they would embark on, different careers.
Exactly. And I think these are skills, especially for, once again, when we're thinking about things that are kind of side hustles on the side of really what our main gigs are. I think it takes a little bit of a different skill set to figure out what our strengths are, what we are good at, and kind of how we can use those to then build that side business. So let's talk a little like definitions here. When we use cold calling, can you just give the brief explanation of even what cold calling is?
Right. So you'll hear a lot of terms like appointment setting, lead generation, prospecting, warm calling. Basically, when you pick up the phone and you call somebody who you don't know and is not expecting your call, that is a cold call. Right. I mean,
yeah,
we've
all had somebody do that to us, right? We've all gotten that phone number that we've just been like, oh, maybe this is important, I have to answer it. And then we answer it. And then it is a person kind of cold calling us. So we've all experienced it on the other side. Yes. So that is something that when people tend to have a very preconceived notion of what cold calling is, right? Like even the example I just kind of gave, right? Where we're getting phone calls from numbers that we don't necessarily know. How did you end up in this field? Usually when we think of cold callers, we're thinking of like spam calls from internet, from overseas, but here you are, and this is really what your business is, and then teaching other people how to use this skill. How did you end up here?
So I ended up here because I was at that consulting firm. It was my first job in sales, and I made one terrible cold call. And I said, I am never doing that again until I learn how to do this really well, because I basically insulted the person. It was awful. It was awful. And I just said never again. And so I went and I hired a consultant and I worked one-on-one with them and I got really good at it. And the reason why cold calling has such a bad reputation is that there are so many people out there that do it poorly.
Exactly.
Nobody complains about getting a really good cold call, but there are so few of us out there that spend the time researching who we're calling, what we need to say, how we need to say it. So that way, so like my cold calls and my clients' cold calls, we are positioned as consultants. People like to receive call. People thank me for calling them. But
Yeah.
there's so many people out there that do it really poorly, or they're encouraged to do it in a way by their companies that just gives cold calling such a bad reputation. And when you don't do it right and you're untrained, it is full of rejection. It is a miserable experience. People do hang up on you.
Yeah.
And I would like to just take the phone away from those people and just say, you cannot, because what ends up happening is that we all get screened indiscriminately. And that's unfair. That's unfair to those of us who do it responsibly. But it isn't filled with rejections. And if you understand, if you've done your homework, you understand the type of person you're calling and what are the pain points that you can solve, and you've got a great delivery, which women have great deliveries, you're going to schedule a lot of appointments. But most people don't do the research. Most people don't spend the upfront time. It's like the pre-call planning. That's actually the most important part.
Okay. So making sure, okay, so we're going to dive into that a little bit more. I have to ask though, since we've kind of talked about just the kind of that difference between then the cold callers that we all kind of know and don't really necessarily like versus the right people calling us. I have to ask, what is probably the biggest mistake that cold callers make that just puts everybody off at like the first second?
Is that they're reading off of a script. They sound like they're reading off of
just sound like a robot.
And they are reading off of a script. They're right. They are. They've memorized a script, and people don't mind talking to other human beings. But if you call somebody and don't give that person your undivided attention, that's insulting. That's ridiculous. You're going to call and interrupt me, and I picked up the phone, so I'm okay with the interruption. But then you're not going to give me your undivided attention. You're going to read from a script. And no. So when that happens to me, I stop people immediately and go, whoa, stop. I'm a cold calling consultant. You can talk to me. I'm not going to hang up on you. What are you really calling about? Just talk to me as a human being. And then you hear the sigh of relief.
Good. And once again, I do see these different companies just kind of being like, here you go, here's a list of phone numbers, here's a script, just call and read that. And people are just not going to be very excited for it. So I like that idea that like just really being yourself and treating people with respect that you're calling is going to set you off in kind of that right place. So there are two ways that I really feel like our listeners at Lady Landlords tend to use calling and where this would be a very helpful skill set for them.
Yeah.
So just to give a quick little background, for right now, as I'm sure you're aware, Jennifer, the real estate market is just absolutely insane. They're trying to purchase a property that's already on the MLS that people already know about is just incredibly difficult. So a lot of our listeners are looking for creative ways to find deals. Now, this is something that a lot of our ladies will do normally, going out, really making deals happen and finding people in different situations that might possibly want to sell their home to them. So we end up in this, we call it driving for dollars, or people send mailers, whatever it may be, to make sure to get their information to be able to cold call. A lot of our lady landlords that are listening will use a software system called PropStream. For any of our listeners out there, if you are not using the PropStream software to be able to track the people that you would possibly want to call, make sure to head over to lady-landlords.com to get your free trial there. But once we now have these numbers, there are two ways that people end up using cold calling for within Lady Landlords. The first one that I want to talk to you about is the idea of now calling these people that they got these phone numbers for. So can we talk a little bit about some tips of what not to do, what to do when we're actually going out now to make this contact with these people that we've just never spoken to, we've never picked up a phone before. and are really kind of starting from scratch here.
Yes. So the first thing that everybody needs to aware of is that there's the do not call list.
Yes.
And so if you call somebody and they perceive you to be a business, they can report you. And the first fine is $15,000 right out of the gate. They do not mess with it. It's $15,000. And I believe that's part of the reason why Merrill Lynch is not teaching any of their brand new folks how to cold call, is because when everyone was at home, I think they ended up racking up a ton of fines.
Oh my God.
Because they ended up calling people. So now trainees are banned from cold calling. So be very careful about that. But I think I know of a way around.
Okay.
I would call these, well, first of all, you can't talk about yourself. It has to be all about how you can help the person on the other end of the phone. So think about, by buying somebody's house, how does it benefit them? Well, it frees up capital. It can help them get out of debt. It can help them retire early. It can help them move. There's so many reasons why.
Absolutely.
That's what you need to talk about. It's not, I want to buy your house because I want to do these things. Nobody cares. It's like, well, good for you. Good for you, Nancy.
Exactly.
I'm really glad you're, glad.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm glad you want to call to make money off of my house. Thanks so much for interrupting my dinner,
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Best of luck. Right. So anyway, so really put yourself in their shoes and find out as much as you can about who these people are, what their age group is. Perhaps they're like a young couple and they've got kids, and you may want to, and this might help them get into a bigger home. If it's an older couple, it will help them perhaps retire early, whatever it is. Do your homework, figure out who these people are and what is the benefit to them of selling their house. And it's not really necessarily to you, but it's just to selling their house. And that's what I would talk about. And I wouldn't attach myself to a company, because that's when this becomes the do not call list. But I don't think there's any problem with a human being calling somebody at home. That is just, it's just a friendly phone call. I would double check, but I would really, and you can go online at donotcallis.com and find out if the person you're calling has put themselves on the list. And then,
good.
Yeah,
I like that there's the registry, so that way we can find out first. And that's interesting to know about the businesses, because a lot of investors will tend to start like an LLC. Then we feel more legitimate. It almost in a way gives us more confidence to be like, oh, well, I'm Becky Nova. I'm not calling, but I am calling from Becky Nova Homes, right? So we try to actually make ourselves sound bigger or more established, but really for cold calling, the recommendation is really to sound personal. And not business oriented, to not get in trouble with the do not call list.
That's how I would approach it. I wouldn't, because then it's, oh, okay, well, who is this person in the company? I can go report this. But if it's really just Jennifer Standish, I drove by your house today, this is what I do. I was just calling to find out if you might be interested, because it would help you, blah, 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 right? That kind of a call that is authentic, it's a human to a human, it's you're not using big words, you're keeping it very pedestrian, you're talking all about how it would benefit them. I think that you may get a lot of no thank yous, not interested, but I don't think it's going to be an annoying call that people would report you to. But I certainly would want to know who's on the do not call list and who's not before I make that call, because you may decide you just don't want to take the risk.
Of course. And to at least check that website. Yeah. It sounds like it's a very easy thing to be able to do. So we might as well at least avoid that. Maybe we have to come up with a different plan of how to reach out to those people on the do not call list. Maybe that's where mailing them a letter might then fit a little bit easier for those specific people. But but I like that idea. And I would imagine too, if I was getting a phone call, and Jennifer can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like if somebody called me and was like, hey, I'm interested in buying your house, if I knew it was Jennifer calling me, I'd be like, okay, this is another woman. This is another human, another person, rather than, hi, this is Jennifer from blah, blah, blah company. And I'd be like, oh, so you're just a big organization. Some random people are going to buy my house. They're all about the money. They're all about the numbers, rather than like, okay, well, Jennifer might have like a family. They're looking for a home. The market's crazy. she's she's in the neighborhood, whatever it may be. Like, I would rather sell my house to Jennifer, not Jennifer of large corporation here.
Exactly. I think that homes are so personal to people, and to have somebody call and compliment and say, I drove by your home, it's exactly what I'm looking for. I don't know if you've considered it in the last couple of years or not, but and explain the situation about how the prices are rising to take advantage of it, and it would allow you to buy, if you've got kids, buy a bigger house, if cash out and retire, or like all these sort of benefits for it. And I would not. The other thing is that this, for most of your listeners, this is a side gig. It's it's a side hustle. They have full-time jobs. So I think that you just leave the LLC out of it, and it's just, I'm just a human being interested in your lovely home. What is wrong about that? That should be very, if somebody called me, I would be like, thank you.
Exactly. So that was actually my next question. So I love that idea of just being able to at least not get you're not getting the door slammed in your face with this strategy, which already is going to make everybody on both sides of that phone feel better. Right now, we can all take a deep breath. They answered the phone, which we're already excited about enough. Now they now respond back being like, oh, like, you like my home, like, thank you for the compliment. Right. We all love compliments.
Right.
Now, where do we go?
Well, then it's, could we set up a time, if you are interested, I would just like to, introduce myself. We can do it over the phone. We can do it Zoom. If you're okay with me stopping by, I would be delighted to, just so to introduce myself so that you know who I am, and we can talk about the details then. Was this, would you be available sometime next week or the following week? And this is also something that you can leave on a voicemail. Right?
That's true.
You can leave this on, and I'll tell you, I mean, people will say nobody listens to voicemail, but if you've got a great delivery and you concentrate fully on the benefits to them, people listen to great voicemails, and voicemails do a lot of work for you. Unfortunately, it's all behind the scenes, but definitely leave a lovely voicemail and you're going to get a call back or a text back. And what I would also do is I would practice. That's how you gain confidence, and also understand that you're calling from a position of wanting to help people. Yes, it is your business. Yes, you want to grow your business. I get that there's a business aspect to it, but you offer tremendous value to some people who need to get out of their house, who are a little afraid of it, no idea what to do. I'm thinking about it. Wouldn't it be nice to have somebody who knows what they're talking about come and visit me and share with me their interests? So you're offering tremendous value to the people that you're calling, and you should call with confidence, because here's the thing, confidence rules the day.
I love that.
It's all about confidence. And so practice. And practice with your friends, get your delivery down, make sure your script is all about them, and then you can start making calls. And it's okay to make mistakes because you're human.
Yeah.
Just don't sound like you're reading from a script.
I like that. So even too, when you're saying like, have a script, it's more of just have like general bullet points that you kind of want to don't write out the exact words that you're going to say and sit there and be like reading it off the paper. But have a concept of, and it sounds like, once again, you had mentioned research, kind of know what the benefit is to this couple, this person that you're calling, know a little bit about clearly the property. So once again, a lot of our listeners call about like de-stressed properties, right? So you can't kind of call and be like, oh my God, it's gorgeous, it's in such great condition. If you're really calling about something that that we're gonna flip and renovate here. So do your homework. I love that idea. But then it sounds like, once again, when we're calling and we're just being human, it's okay if you say the word or you stumble over something.
I do write scripts, but I treat them as dialogue. And I do put in ums and ahs, and I do speak in past tense, present tense. It's just, you look at it like it's a movie script.
Yeah.
It's not complete sentences written in perfect grammar. And if you're, it's just, and you write it it's very pedestrian. It's very, you're not getting fancy with this. You don't have to prove you're smart to anybody. You just have to be confident and know. And what's nice is there are probably different categories of owners. How many are there? Maybe 5, maybe 6. You could probably come up with, pre-write all of these scripts ahead of time. And if somebody's selling a distressed property, how you can help them. If somebody is close to retirement, how you can, that's another script. Then a young family, right? All of these people require types, not people, but all these types of owners require their own scripts. And you can use them probably over and over and over again, depending upon who you're calling. So this stuff is going to sound, if you're calling and you believe that you help people and you've done your homework, you're calling with authenticity and integrity. And if you're calling because you want to help somebody out of a situation or facilitate something, then you're calling with a willingness to help. That's a completely different call than what we're used to thinking about as cold calling.
And I think that even kind of goes back to almost like basics of sales, if you will, which is still clearly part of cold calling, but also even just trying to make a deal and do business with somebody, regardless if you're selling a physical item versus looking to buy someone's house to invest that property.
Right.
It still is, we're still looking for, how does this benefit the other person? That's, everything has to kind of still be mirrored in that sense. So it completely makes sense to go into this with that concept, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, I don't like to be salesy.
No,
but we're not, when we're sharing with the other person how we have kind of an answer to a problem that they may have. When they have to retire, they are in foreclosure or whatever it may be, we're offering a solution. So that should be shared with people. Those people want that information. So we're actually doing them a service by being able to share that with them.
Right. Oh, absolutely. It's, I tell my clients, you have every right, and this is B2B, you have every right to call a business during business hours to discuss business. Well, with your folks, you are calling people at home or at least a cell phone, but you're still offering tremendous value.
Exactly.
And what I would recommend is that you make the initial call and you schedule a time to talk at a later date so that you have time to prepare. You can ask a couple questions. I think it might be a little difficult to try to have that conversation right then and there, because you don't really know. I mean, the person could be in the middle of the mall or at Home Depot, right? So just know that these are like appointment setting calls that you're going to then schedule an appointment to call back at a later date.
I actually love that. One of the best things that people say to me on the phone that will always get my respect is when someone calls and they're like, hi, Becky, it's Jennifer. Do you have a few minutes now? Are you available to talk now? And then that way, that at least, once again, then that can still have a follow-up of, hi, I was interested in speaking to you. I passed your house. It's gorgeous. I was wondering if that, and then kind of go into that benefit quickly there to get that appointment set for a time that's more convenient for the person that you're speaking to have that longer conversation. Sometimes I feel like I pick up the phone and people are already like halfway through like their pitch to me, and I'm just lost. I'm also like, I'm in the middle of something, but I was trying to be nice and do you a favor and answer the phone. And now you're like completely catching me off guard and now barraging me with too much information that my mind's not ready with. So I love the idea of kind of keep it short and set up that time and get that appointment with somebody to have that bigger conversation.
Yes. And that way that person comes to the conversation and is giving you their undivided attention.
That's true too. Now, plus also I feel like now you almost have a more qualified lead. You have that initial conversation. They know what you're vaguely interested in discussing. So now when you go into it, well, now you can really share more about those benefits and how things would actually work, because they're even open to the idea of it.
Yeah. And I would position these as simple introductory meetings. I would not imply that you're expecting a business deal.
Yeah.
It's because when you're asking somebody to make a business decision, like selling their home, you're not going to get in as many doors as somebody who is positioning this as saying, it's just an introductory appointment. I'm not expecting anything out of this. It's just an opportunity for me to introduce myself and we can have, a short conversation, whatever, but it's not what I'm expecting. So please, no stress.
And that does, once
Low
you can
stress,
like
low
disarm
stress.
and like remove that people aren't like the entire time sitting there being like, oh my God, I have to make a decision. Am I going to sell my house to this woman? Am I not
Right.
going to sell? She
No.
needs an answer today and I've only known her for 10 minutes. When you
Right.
take that away from people and being like you said, this introductory conversation, have an open dialogue.
Yeah.
They're going to be a lot more receptive, because then it's like, oh my God, okay, we're not making a decision today. We are just fact finding, learning more, getting to know each other.
Yep.
So,
And you never know who that person knows. So getting in the door and just having an introductory discussion where there are no expectations, it may not be right for that person. And that person, if you were insisting on it, or if you were positioning it as I'm expecting to make a decision, that person wouldn't meet with you. But if it's an introductory, that person will meet with you. And if it's not right, they may know other people. So then it's like building your network of
I love
folks
that.
out there. And so for every person that you talk to, you are somehow connected to every person they know.
And then you have a
So
better chance of following up with that person, of maybe that's the best thing about networking. And that's actually
yep.
how you and I were even connected, was through
Yeah.
a mutual friend.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I feel like in networking, we always have to remember that we're not necessarily in this situation. Yes, when we have a certain house that we're looking for, but in general, we have to remember that there are hundreds of people behind every single person we're talking to.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we don't want to go into situations where it's a yes or no answer and that's it and that's done, and be like, okay, well, since you won't sell me your house, that's it. I'm never talking to you again. We now close that door. But now we're closing that door on not only that person, but all the people that they possibly know.
Yes.
If we
Oh,
make them comfortable, maybe they'll say, well, hey, this isn't right for me,
right.
but my brother, my neighbor, they'll keep you in mind, and you can actually follow up with that person and continue to foster that relationship.
And then that's a referral to you.
Mm-hmm.
Which is so much better. And so you may end up meeting with an influencer who's never going to sell their house to you, but may have a whole treasure trove of people that they would be delighted to forward your name to. And so, because the other thing that we have got to understand, and I think you guys get this, homes are so personal, that to go from I'm not even thinking about it to, oh no, this is a great idea for me, that takes a lot of touches. That takes a lot of conversations. That's not something that you're going to convince somebody in a 10-minute conversation. So understand that all of the work that you're doing upfront from the very first phone call is just you're creating an environment for that person when the time is right to say yes. So expect that you're going to need to follow up and, touch. For example, if somebody is not interested, why not then just say, I completely understand. I get it, but would you mind if I just touch base every once in a while? Like if I could call you in 6 months just to touch base. Most people are going to say, sure, because things change. So you end up, when you start making calls, you end up with a working list of people who you've spoken to who don't mind you catching up with them every 6 months. And that becomes like a really powerful, important asset that list becomes, right? So nobody needs to fear cold calling.
No, I love the way that we're even just talking about positioning this. I feel like this is so helpful for our listeners to realize that we are actually helping the people that we are calling to see if they're interested in selling their home. I want to switch gears a little bit to talk about the second way. Now, this one I'm kind of throwing at you, Jennifer, because it's not necessarily the cold calling in the typical sense that we just get a list of phone numbers and just start checking them off, right?
Right.
But one of the ways that a lot of our women work is looking for what's called a private lender. This is where you happen to know somebody. This could be, your uncle, this could be a brother, a friend, maybe a coworker, but it's just somebody kind of in our sphere of influence that might want to not get involved necessarily in actually investing in real estate, but possibly has extra money, looking to do something with it. Yeah. And it's kind of mentioned like, oh, we're not getting enough returns in the stock market. We're not getting enough in our 401ks. I wish I had something else to kind of do with my money. And now we need to kind of change that conversation or maybe reach out to them. So I'm going to put this under the cold calling bucket from the sense of now we have to kind of call Uncle Joe here and say, hey, why don't you give me that money?
Right.
These tend to be very awkward conversations because now they're people we know, but we've never had a conversation with them about that business or what work we can kind of do together.
Right. Here again, this is a sales situation,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to concentrate on the benefits that person would receive. So it is things like, you're going to get a higher return.
Mm-hmm.
So it has nothing to do about you. You can't go in there and say, this Uncle Joe, this would help me do this, and it would help me do that. And then like in 10 years, and then I'm going to have this little empire. And then in 20 years, I'm going to be this. And like, nice, Nancy, good for you.
But nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares when it comes down to it.
Especially in that first phone call.
Yeah.
So really what you want to do is you want to make a call to set up the next phone call. And so this very first cold call has to be all about how you can help them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you talk about, the benefit. And then when you sit down in the bigger meeting, somebody may ask you, well, what are your long-term plans, Nancy? What are you thinking of? Then you can have that dialogue, but
Mm-hmm.
nobody is going to give you time. I don't care who it is, unless you first approach them with, this is how I can help you. This is how this benefit, having this conversation, this is how it benefits you. Because
Yeah.
remember, you're selling time. You're not selling a business decision. You're just asking for time, asking for an audience, right?
I love that. I love the idea of just really our goal with these calls is not to get a seller to agree to buy a house, not to get Uncle Joe to give us $1 million, but to just get that appointment with that person to then have that discussion and then walk through what you're looking for and how this benefits them. But I feel like this takes, Jennifer, the pressure off women, because now it's not, I don't have to get on the phone, and I'm not going to be on the phone with this person for an hour, and I have to pitch them and share this and tell them the numbers and the rate of return. I'm literally going to be on the phone for a nice short period of time.
Yep.
My ask is just to set up a time to talk with them.
Yes, that's all it is. That's all it is. And these calls can take 90 seconds, right?
We can do this for 90 seconds. Exactly.
Right. And you know what? And if you mess up, it's okay. It's okay. There's another person to call. You can always call back in 6 months. You could call back tomorrow and go, hi, it's me. I want to try this again. And people will laugh and be like, okay. Right. So yeah, these are quick calls.
Mm-hmm.
You not need, and this is, a lot of people think, oh, I need to know so much to make these calls. Well, honestly, I could make these calls for somebody and know nothing about real estate investment, because it's just asking for time.
Because you're just setting the appointment.
Setting the appointment, and you can set the appointment a week out. Give yourself enough time to do the homework, to build the case why it's a good idea.
So ladies, get your appointment and then come to Lady Landlords and ask, be like, I got my call. I got my introductory meeting. What do I say now? And then we'll walk you through the presentation, the conversation, the numbers. We can help with that side. But that's fantastic. The goal of these calls is just to get an appointment set.
Right.
I love that.
So when you're thinking about your script, the script formula is you introduce yourself. Mm-hmm. Hi, Nancy, it's Jennifer Standish, right? And then you have a sentence about how you can help them. And then perhaps there's like a little success story, like you did something recently, and look what that individual was able to do, like retire early, something to build a little bit of credibility. That you're like this, I don't want you to be positioning yourselves as like a formal company that does this all the time and is going to flip this. But in order to kind of take you a little seriously, you might want to throw in a little story about how you helped somebody, how you helped your aunt or whoever, and now they're able to, now they're in Florida enjoying their lives, blah, 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 blah.
I like that. Just a little credibility. We're not just completely off the street.
We're not a wackadoodle.
Yeah.
Right? Like we're not bananas. We're not bananas.
Not a wackadoodle.
And then just say, I would like to introduce myself. I only need 10 to 15 minutes whenever it's convenient. Do you have time? That's it.
And if not, no worries,
and that's and what I would do also, I would also look at, like, what are the objections you're going to hear? because a lot of times it could be, well, I'm too busy. Well, I'm too busy isn't a no. It's just, well, when are you not busy? I'm not interested. Well, you can ask a little bit, okay, well, why, can you just explain to me a little bit like why you aren't interested? So you can flip a no into a yes just by being prepared to address the objections.
I like that.
And you're only going to get 5 or 6. There's only 5 or 6
of the negatives of like those
yeah,
objections that you're gonna get.
it could be, you know, my cousin's a real estate agent. If I'm gonna do anything, I'm gonna sell with them. I don't really like them, whatever. So there are gonna be people who say no and why. And if you reframe the objection, which is honestly, whatever anybody says, it almost doesn't matter, because oh, I don't care that you work with, you know, that your cousin is a real estate agent, because I just want to introduce myself.
Yeah.
It's just, I just want to introduce myself, you know, just talk to you a little bit about what, you know, what I'm thinking, or have this, you know, have this kind of conversation with you. It's okay that you would, you know, that you really would only work with your cousin, because you know that that person's probably willing to work with just about anybody.
Yeah,
right?
they're just giving you an answer.
That's just the excuse to say no. So if you can reframe the objection to give that person the opportunity to change their mind, and be like, yeah, actually, this is a good idea. And really, you're only asking for time. That's it.
I love that. I think that just really, to me, even this conversation just really changes the way that like I'm even looking at cold calling. Like I'm actually almost like excited to get to like test this out now
so
and get to go try it.
Cold calling, if you approach it, like I said, with authenticity, integrity, and a willingness to help, you do your homework before you call, you use strategic messaging. You don't tell somebody who's on the verge of retirement that it would be a great idea that you can get them into a bigger home for their future kids, right?
Yeah.
Like you do your homework. This is all about relationship building. Cold calling, if I could come up with another name that instantly communicates exactly what it is, I'd change it. Cold calling feels cold, but you know what? It's all about relationship building, and they can't find you. You have to make the first, and you have
Agreed.
to. Right.
Agreed. No seller's going to call somebody and be like, hey, I was thinking about selling my house. Are you an investor? Did you want to make money?
Right.
Not going to happen.
Right. Exactly. And so, and I also believe that not a lot of people are probably really well served by real estate agents. I mean, some are, some aren't. So if you come to this with a lot of integrity, then you could be saving them a lot of headaches down the road.
Yeah.
So yeah, cold calling is nothing to be feared. You just have to, it's the preparation, it's the practice, it's the emotion, the attitude, the behind why you're calling, and you can be very successful.
I love it.
To be afraid of, because the other thing is nobody's going to die.
That is true.
Nobody dies. If the call goes south, I give you permission to hang up.
Exactly.
I really do. I give you permission to hang up. You can hang up. Just hang up. It's not going well. Hang up.
Exactly. Get out of there. Abort mission. Hang up. We are done. That was 90 seconds of our lives. Right. We can move forward from that. Right. We're going to recover. We're going to be okay.
You probably had a baby, or you probably got through a serious illness. You probably have gone through a lot more stress. You can hang up.
Exactly. Than having a stranger that we don't know be confused about like our phone call. We can abort that, get out. They'll never know. They're going to move on in their lives, and we can too.
And you know, there's a lot I deal with a lot of people who have call reluctance, and call reluctance is absolutely fascinating, because it comes from your parents, it comes from society, it comes from just cognitive distortions. And so I'm a big believer in affirmations and things like that. But it is possible that you can have all your ducks in a row, practice, but you become paralyzed and can't pick up the phone.
Yeah.
That, you know, that's something that I can help people with, because I deal with it all the time. And a lot of it is just understanding where that fear comes from. And in a lot of cases, it's your little chicken brain that existed with the dinosaurs, and it's telling you this is something scary and your life is threatened. So you need to run. So we're going to make you so uncomfortable that you're going to get up and move away from the phone. Right. It's that cold caller license is passive, but that's part of it, is that it's the fight or flight that kicks in, and you just have to tell that little part of your brain that you're actually fine. And with every call, that anxiety, now the anxiety can come from, it can be very complicated, but that's one part of it, is we do have this brain that wants to keep us safe. And it doesn't realize that the dinosaurs are no longer around.
Yes, we're not calling dinosaurs. They're not going to come after us if we don't say the exact perfect words on a phone call. They're not going to, the dinosaurs are not going to chase us down. If a seller said, no, I don't want to talk to you, lady. Exactly. It's not a life or death situation. So can people, by making more and more phone calls, do people end up gaining kind of that confidence?
Oh, sure. Because so you may start off and you may make 10 calls a day. So you don't get any appointments, whatever, but you make 10 calls the next day. And then maybe by the end of the week, you actually have 2 appointments. Well, I can't tell you the rush that you get of, oh my God, I did it. I got an appointment. Somebody wants to meet with me, and it becomes addicting. And because once you get 1 appointment and you get 2 appointments, then you become a believer in that this really works, and it's so efficient. You're sitting at home on the phone. You're not driving around. You're not mailing things. You are, what I love about cold calling is you are in complete control of the process. You decide who you want to call, how many people you want to call. If you're doing flyers, mailings, driving around, you're waiting for somebody to get back to you.
That's true.
You wait and see, and that's not a strategy. Wait and see is not a strategy. So,
we always talk at Lady Landlords. We have to go out, make our deals, be proactive, make things happen, especially in this market right now.
Right. And if you do,
is a way to do that.
If you do it enough, what you can do is you can figure out how many dials you need to make that turn into conversations, that turn into appointments, how many appointments you need to just close a deal. And then you can back yourself into, well, if a deal is worth X amount of money and I want to make $250,000 a year, you can back yourself into how many cold calls you need to make a day.
I love that strategy. I like that kind of mathematic, kind of putting that together and then saying like, okay, if this is how much money that I'm going to make from per deal, and it took this many appointments to get it, and it took that many phone calls to get that many appointments, we can really kind of back ourselves into how many calls we need to be making. And is that by hour, by day, by week, whatever it is, to really be able to match what our goals are as real estate investors. I think that's a fantastic tip there. Now, last question that I have for you today is, what would you say is your best number 1 tip to raising someone's confidence with calling?
I think it's, well, when I work with clients, they just say, I just don't know what to say when somebody picks up the phone. And when people understand the value that they bring to others, they're often really surprised. And here's an example. Somebody sells paper. It's paper. It's paper. It's all around us, right? We have offices filled with paper. But really, what does paper do? It communicates information, and it communicates very important information sometimes. And it can mobilize people. It can get everybody vaccinated. It can, right? It communicates processes and places. And so in the best, I don't know if you call it the best case scenario, but paper can save people's lives. So are you selling paper, or are you selling the medium in which information is disseminated to help people? So I say you're helping, you're improving people's lives. And you happen to sell paper. I improve people's lives because I teach them how to take control of their sales pipeline and help them fulfill their lives. Their lives get better. I've seen my clients' life trajectory completely change once they have the confidence and understand their value. Their whole life opens up in ways that they never envisioned. So it's like, I improve people's lives, and I do it by teaching them how to cold call. You all improve people's lives by doing what you do. So if you come to it from that place, you free people from debt. you allow people, you help people get out from underneath property that is dragging them down, preventing them from living the life that they've always wanted, helping people retire early, grow their, right? So when you understand the value that you bring and you really want to help people, your voice, that's a different kind of call. I mean, it is still technically a cold call, but that's a beautiful call to make as well as receive.
Agreed. That is what absolutely is going to get those appointments set moving forward.
Yes.
Jennifer,
and I welcome anybody, if you need help, to please contact me.
Yes, I will make sure to link Jennifer's contact information for everybody down in the show notes. So head there, have a conversation. You can practice your cold calling skills on Jennifer and give her a call and really make sure that this is something that you understand how we are benefiting sellers and how you are able to make your next deal. Jennifer, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Joining us, of course. And for any of our lady landlords out there, if you are still looking for help on making sure that you have your process and plan put into place, head over to lady-landlords.com/roadmap to get your personalized roadmap to real estate investing. Thank you very much. And we'll see you for our next episode of the Lady Landlords podcast next week.